So let's talk about the Goat Dad, the Space Paladin, the Lawn Keeper in Chief, Oberon, and of course his upcoming rework in more detail, because it was shown off on yesterday's dev stream, but there has since been a much more detailed workshop post put up on the forums. Now, from what we've seen from Pablo on the workshop video, it's looking like Oberon's baseline survivability is up. His team value is definitely on the up because he's way more team orientated, and his gameplay loop looks much more fluid or much more enjoyable. Not to mention, his Smite will prioritize Eximus enemies and delete their Overguard, which is absolutely huge. Now, of course, keep a healthy pinch of skepticism, right? Because that's always a good thing to keep, because some of our builds for our Oberons, whether you're built around the old Smite or synergy with his passive and pets, or abilities like Breach Surge may be affected or they may not. We won't know until we get our hands on this rework ourselves and test it all out. And I'm sure the Warframe community will, and in doing so will more than likely break some things. So let's jump into it, right? Righteous Negation is Oberon's new passive. Whenever Oberon or an ally in Affinity range picks up a Health Orb or a Universal Orb, he will generate a floating shield to charge around himself and teammates, and it's not a traditional shield gate, it is a damage negation, and it has got 3 separate charges. When a hit from an enemy gets blocked by one of these charges, you will get a tiny internal cooldown on your Oberon, about 1/4 of a second, before another charge can be consumed. And if a hit consumes your final charge, your Oberon will get a brief window of invulnerability. Visually, there is these 3 little energy shields that are going to orbit your Oberon to show how many charges you have left, and you can track them just by looking at a glance. Now, the kicker is that Oberon will share these shields with teammates automatically within Affinity range when he picks up Health Orbs, so your team will definitely feel the benefit of having those little, I guess, mini gates attached to them as well, which has led to comparisons to Revenant's Mesmer skin. But of course there is definitely differences between the two. Mesmer skin, of course, is the gold standard kind of nope button, and it stuns attackers that come into contact with it. Revenant can also recast it and keep his immortality loop rolling. Oberon's Righteous Negation, of course, is different. It is based around charges that you generate by picking up Health Orbs, so it is tied to your orb economy. Not to mention you can't recast it, which means your sustain is going to come from gameplay flow, right? From killing enemies, from picking up orbs and keeping those shields rotating around you and teammates, rather than how Revenant keeps his Mesmer skin going, which is recasting it. Now, you could combine this with synth mods on your companions with a Desecrate Necros or any other form of Health Orb generation, and you could self-fuel this passive pretty well with Oberon. However, the downside for this passive could be that if you get starved of orbs, or if you get tickled too much by lots of separate damage instances from enemies, you could shoot through those 3 charges relatively quickly. Now, think of Oberon's new passive as a party-wide mini gate. Oberon's new Smite ability, which of course is his first ability, in the old kit, Smite was a single target popper and kind of split off projectiles. In the rework, when you cast Smite on a target, several different things are going to happen. The target is going to be stripped of Overguard and armor if it's an Eximus unit. The target is going to lose a percentage of its current health and shields in a single calculation, with an overall cap so that you don't execute, I guess, level cap enemies in one tap. The enemy is force staggered and open up to melee finishers, and the enemies within 6 meters of your initial target will also take a share of damage from kind of splash damage as well. They're also staggered, so there's a bit of crowd control thrown into his Smite now as well. And if there is an Eximus unit in that pack of enemies, Smite will prioritize that Eximus unit, meaning that for Steel Path or any kind of an Archimedia mission, Smite is going to become one of the go-to, I guess, de facto Eximus delete buttons, where you can tag the enemy, their Overguard is gone, they're cracked wide open for a finisher if you want to do that to them, and nearby enemies are going to take splash damage as well. So your team isn't going to be stuck dumping a lot of ammo into Eximus units. Also, don't forget, his Smite is his subsume ability, so you're going to be able to put this on any frame you want. Now, whether they're going to do any changes to his Smite once you subsume it onto other Warframes, we don't know. I don't think they mentioned this on the dev stream last night, but we'll move on to his new Hallowed Ground, which has been changed from a frontal cone ability to a full circular zone around your Oberon with improved vertical coverage, so that you're going to be able to hit drones or anything flying over it as well. So it's no longer a wedge that you'll have to, I guess, herd enemies into. It's going to be all the way around a radial field that you can drop wherever you want to fight. Range, of course, will scale it, and like I said, height is going to affect enemies that fly over it like drones as well. Nullifier bubbles, if they walk onto it, will no longer delete all of the hallowed ground in one go. Instead, only inside the nullifier's bubble it will remove the hallowed ground there. But once the bubble is gone, my hallowed ground, but your hallowed ground as well, is still going to do the job, and that's just as important. Now, radiation procs in the zone are now more reliable. Apparently they're going to tick more often, so you can expect more consistent radiation stacking on enemies, which directly amplifies his fort ability, Reckoning's damage scaling. Also, Renewal's healing is doubled for himself and teammates that stand on hallowed ground. So you're basically going to want to drop hallowed ground to keep the heals up and also to amplify the damage of his fort ability. Which brings us to his renewal ability, his healing ability, his third one. Old Renewal was a bit of a hassle, right? It cost more energy per teammate or ally or pet that you healed. It punished you or teammates for having additional summons, and it was anchored to a kind of fixed zone. His new Renewal is going to fix a lot of those issues. Basically, it is a flat per second drain. It's no scaling cost per target that you're healing, and it follows you using Affinity range, which is a very large range. I think is Affinity range 50 meters. If someone falls off the map, or if someone gets nullified, or if someone runs 3, 4, 5 rooms away, you're not going to have to juggle recasting it to chase them down. Once they're inside Affinity range, they should be good, and they're going to take the heal effect from your Renewal. Not to mention the fact that everyone affected by your Renewal will also get the Iron Renewal buff as well, which is a straight up armor increase that is 50% for Oberon and 100% for teammates. So teammates are going to get double the armor that Oberon does. So he is very much a team orientated paladin now. This also stacks multiplicatively with your base armor mods as well. So Iron Renewal plus his new passive's negation charges is going to make squishy frames in a party with Oberon feel a lot less brittle. If you plant Renewal while on hallowed ground, the heal of course is doubled, so that paladin aura while fighting on blessed ground definitely fits that fantasy mold right now. It hits it on the nose. Not to mention all of the armor you're buffing people with as well. So that brings us to his ultimate ability, his new Reckoning, and the changes that it is getting. Think of Reckoning now as your detonator ability. Basically, you're going to prime enemies with radiation using your other abilities, and then Reckoning is going to do more damage based on the amount of radiation stack that those enemies have. However, it is now affected by line of sight, so you're going to have to be careful what room you cast it in, whether it's a narrow hallway, enemies are behind barriers, and so on. So basically, like I said, the damage for your Reckoning has now been increased, and it scales with the number of radiation stacks on an enemy. A flat 750 damage per stack, which according to the Dev Workshop post, once you get maximum stacks of radiation, that is 3 times the damage that Reckoning is doing in game right now. So you're basically spreading radiation from hallowed ground constantly, as well as smiting enemies. So you'll see Reckoning punch harder inside that zone of your hallowed ground. Survivors of Reckoning will lose half of their armor permanently by default, which means even if you don't kill them first time around, then Second Slam might kill them, but you're definitely softening them up for getting killed some way. You're also going to gain bonus armor for every enemy that is affected by your Reckoning, so you're going to gain 10 armor per hit plus an additional 5 if they are radiated, and it caps at 1000 bonus armor. Practically, this means every big slam during combat will spike Oberon's own survivability, which is going to pair perfectly with Iron Renewal as well as those charges from his passive. So he is going to be a much tankier, much harder to kill Warframe, which is why so many of the community are throwing comparisons out there with Revenant right now. But again, we're going to have to get our hands on them to see it ourselves. The beautiful part about the sustain, I guess, right now with Oberon is that enemies hit by Reckoning are now going to be marked so that when they die, they have a chance to drop Health Orbs, even if Reckoning isn't the ability or the way that they get that killing blow. In other words, you don't need to last hit them with your ultimate to fuel your passive's halo anymore, or those shields that rotate around you. You can cast, you can mark your enemies, you can then fight them, kill them whatever way you want to. Health Orbs will drop, you will get your charges refilled for the passive. Your team will stay topped up and the loop will continue. Now, if you're running mods like Equilibrium, like Health Conversion, or even Arcane Blessing, it's going to become much smoother. Equilibrium will turn spare Health Orbs into energy when you're full. Health Conversion will give you more bonus stacks of armor. You can have Arcane Blessing, which will boost your maximum health. There is also Arcane Battery, where you could use as well, which will give you more energy and allow you to drop flow if you wanted to. You can throw synth mods on your companions. With Smite deleting Overguard, Eximus units are going to stop being bumps in the road. With Reckoning marking enemies for, of course, those Health Orbs and then stripping any of the survivors of their armor. Killing is going to be much faster with your Oberon than what it is currently in the game once this update drops. And he's going to fit the idea of a team paladin much better than he did before these changes. And we're going to have a Warframe that a lot of the community barely ever touched. I would assume turned into a very, very popular Warframe to bring in a group, especially for any of the Archimedia missions. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see and get the update in our hands ourselves and test it out. But it does look like it's time to dust off your Oberon. His playstyle looks much smoother and much more team orientated than it was before. But let me know in the comment section below what you think of his changes. I know there is a bit of skepticism within the community, and that's fine. It's healthy to have that. Let me know what you think of his current kit or the changes to his current kit. If you like the look of them, have a great day, have a great week, and as always, thanks for watching.
You can see shit cause you have closed your eyes. You say you listen, but you're missing